Hello and welcome, as today's date is the completion of the 21st day of January 2020. As we're heading into the 22nd day, my name is Derek. Like always, all bets, trades of the like within each's own risk, their own reward. And for myself, risk reward management, always job number one. And we'll take a look at Bitcoin, Theta, a few other altcoins as well. So then, starting off with BTC. This resistance, the high that it established after 3 days higher, and even after this individual day here from the consolidation, established itself near 8,400, which has been the most recent support from the last high, barely above 9,000. We had the last couple of days hanging in there within the 18 average of highs, which is a nice consolidation, little bit of a short-term uptrend, really not much to write home about, but it is still sticking in within this area. And the setup remains in this bullish front, since, of course, making these last few lows and now developing this uptrend. But the hour time frame is where it gets very interesting, as the that move that went down a few days ago, well, was right here. Since then, the market went into sideways consolidation, and which is very normal for big and up or down moves to just go sideways after the fact. And what does it do after that fact? Well, failed breakdown, and this is interesting, this little bit in here. Price action retests the previous low, and instantly, not only does it reject that sell-off, but it does not resist within the hour time frame where it came from as previous support. It not only didn't even resist its previous resistance, rather it's now supporting it right in here. So a very interesting move that occurred today. And I'm just finding out about this now at 1500 hours, so very projective setup. When you see something like this, we've already established this level of resistance, and there was 3 levels that it had, 2 that it broke through that I already named: previous support, previous first resistance point. And getting through that, we can talk about different resistance weights, 61.8% from this low and this high. That would be one of them. Then a little bit at 76.4, whichever previous high, so on and so forth. But it's been in such a beautiful uptrend. We got this low, we have this low, we have this low. This one, of course, matching in here. But after each one was a consolidation from a key point. There's this, and then after each one's done, exitation of the 18, move higher, exitation higher. It just always happens. And in this case here, this is where it's really exited, but a true exit formation would be. I like how it's holding this move so far. Now let's switch over to Theta, and we have, from the start of this price action, 3,000 or so Satoshi, and this long period of time where the price was like 1,300. The failed breakout back higher, this nice move getting over 5, and then even longer and smaller down in here. But we look at this play out. We have this low hitting. What's the lowest number on here? 1111. Okay. But these Fibonacci lines, which is 1127, really what the number, it appears below it, of course. How it's playing out, I think, is magnificent. But before we look any further on this, I want to take a look at some comments that I did on a Theta video about 4 weeks ago. First off, from Tim, the smiley face indicator works every time. Alex, definitely 2 people who comment a lot. Thank you very much for your comments and your consistent support in the channel. Great information. Thank you. Very welcome. Dark Horse, nice work. I think I do a lot of good work on here. And Vignesh GJ, I feel Theta going to break all-time highs of 5,000 Satoshi. Where the next high targets if it breaks, and we might as well go over that again. It's different methods of trying to figure out where we go when market conditions present such the opportunity. And then Max said, awful analysis. Immediate support is 1,280 on Theta, not 1,100. If it goes back to 1,100, it's back into accumulation and won't be gearing up for another push anytime soon. And the 1280 number that I mentioned, I agreed as the next level, but the one after that, the most important one, of course, being 1100. And really the general area working out to be piercing below 1127 if I wanted to get technical. Now, of course, it's a decision if somebody makes. It's their opinion if they think something is good or bad. And Well, my opinion is my analysis kicks ass. With that being said, 1280 was support, it wasn't there. So what do we know when support doesn't hit when it's supposed to? You're probably going to make a concise move to next key level. It did. It pierced above it, which is unusual. But then the next two opportunities, it fixed it, supposedly, support, I guess. That sounded weird. Anyway, we resisted on New Year's Eve. And then this failed breakout. But what didn't happen from this failed breakout on January the 6th was any type of fast moves lower. Because we can see that after getting above the December 31st highs on that date, it did so with this higher low on January 3rd. So that's a very big situation, and it really needed on that time frame to hold 12 and a quarter, and it didn't. It resisted it here for a while. But with the two opportunities break down on January 8th, but even bigger so, or more so on the 14th, that never happened. It held that big must-hold area on what was 3 different occasions from the last one, which was an outside day where the high, it was the highest high it had seen since it started breaking down several days before. And technically, these were lows not seen since what was December the 12th. From that point, just a few days of hanging in there within the consolidation correctionary move, really not escaping that band. It did so a few days ago on the 19th, and I like how the day after it holds it, and how today's session, and we can see continued follow through, just magnificent. And when we take a look at this thing on this single hour term, we can see more on this beautiful failed move right in here, how it just 2 hour stamp, 2 o'clock in the morning. It instantly rejects this, and it's been holding that rally very nicely. And then we see the situation, how it comes back down, finds support at key fib, higher lowing this move in here with immediate lift off higher. Now that it's done it, it came as retested as this previous point. We can see that we resisted here. We resisted in this general area here. That indicates must hold area. It coincides within this rising 18. This to me is looking like a very good setup for, I like how it's holding and staying above this key Fibonacci point, and even more so with that failed move, just to give it, what words, extra probability, more, whatever way you want to put it, just the fact that it should go higher being more probable. I think that's a better way of putting it. Now let's switch it over to Tezos. And this one here this stated to me it was going to go down to 1293, not even close. I mean, I'd rather it would have for ratio trading purposes, but markets do what markets do. We can see from this point that 3 days of rallying, 3 days of going sideways from the rally on January 16th, and then it did so again a couple days ago, as it managed to get above the resistance that it had in here, but more importantly, the resistance of the last few days. We had price action come down, we can see pretty much to where we came from, but not down to 1687 to that key fib point. The key situation is we've been in this downtrend from this consolidation point, so far successfully holding well above what I consider the must-hold area. And within the flattening of the band, that's the first thing in a downtrend of the next stage, band flattening out. We can see that was going on in here. Number 2, establish resistance. Well, now that the 18 of lows is starting to rise, I suppose because I see that it was a red candle down move from this high, decent amount down. 1876, it already went down to 1726. So because I know the shorter term is going to have this correctionary thing showing, that if it's able to regain momentum from this point further, the chances of making new highs after that is very good. And speaking of new highs, I mentioned with Theta, I'm going to calculate it. So why don't I just calculate highs for this and then go back and try to do it again for Theta? Excellent idea. Okay. So before we get into that part again, all these resistance points in here on the single hour, there's your clear breakout at this point, consolidating nearly above this at that point in here. Nice leg higher, not too small, not too big, definitely more small than big, but definitely a good standard leg from 1762 up to 18, we'll say 100 point basis higher. And after correcting in here for a while, attempting to try to get this thing going, not so successful, and obviously not successful in holding the area established, thus establishing a noticeable leg lower but above Fibonacci. So I realize in here that it's going to come down to this 18 average for sure, where if we are unable to hold even more shorter term, and well, if this thing starts to show weakness upon such, then I'm fully expecting it to pierce below 1687. But on the contrary, getting it above this high, showing any type of strength, basically above the 1800 mark, now we're talking about successful consolidation coming back, and just barely for a short period of time, into about the highest amount of area that you can talk about for coming back to where you came from. For that would be between like 1795 down to fib. Alrighty, so now let's calculate upside targets. This one is going to be, I'm going to do this one very simple. What I like to do is I want to take a bull market run higher, which is obvious from the October Halloween lows, we'll call it, to the mid-December highs. So I want to take high, which would come in at 2,571, divided by what I'm going to, normally I'd have to calculate Fibonacci, which is already calculated, which is 1293. So I'm going to go 2571 divided by 1293, that's basically 2, to the root of 1.618, and then multiply 1293 again. So I'm going to bring up my calculator and put those target numbers in. So 2571, and then down here is 16 or 1293. I'm always doing what the 38.2 number is, whether it hits it or not. And I just there we go. So the upside target for the next move, and this isn't going to be that large of a number, there's going to be many more targets after this, but my next immediate number that I'd be looking for Tezos, now that it's had this correctionary phase, upon the situation of breaking this, is around 4,000, because I get 3932. It usually pierces extra, so that's the number that I'm going to go with. Now let's do these calculations amongst that of Tezos, or excuse me, of Theta. This one gets a little more complicated, but when it's all said and done, it really isn't. And I'm going to even go more further analysis on the 3-day, which I'm looking at right now. It's a very interesting situation. I mean, right where the line is now, the exact price of it is really big. And this is the Huobi exchange. I'm also multiplying this by 100 million, really just for better log scaling. And it really does show you how small these moves have been and all the opportunities that it had. And I waited for big buys at 600, but ratio trading has been very good for me with the Theta overall. But this line that was support here at the very, very start, February of 2018. And then it becomes support again after Binance lists it. And for that period of time, we've seen it's been resisting it. Well, it was supported here in May of last year, broke below it in June on the start of the summer solstice Northern Hemisphere. And then we resist it. We resist it number 2. We resist it number 3. Attempt to even do it for a 4th time. No go to even attempt number 4. But on attempt number 4, it did barely break above it. And we've been resisting it ever since. But while doing so, the support in here we can see is this more general area of resistance within the newly 18 average. And well, I'm not going to, I think it's poised to break, but in the situation of doing that, because it's almost like failed breakdown of a long box that I like to draw a situation, because it's been in this range since, well, the summer of last year. It's over half a year since that point. And the prospects, and just knowing that, should tell you that this thing can go wild. We've already seen in just this blip of a move that it had a 5x play. So I think one of the simplest things to go on right off the bat is that a 2x move has got to be conservative. And even though this high says below 5,000 on Binance was barely over 5. I mean, one thing I could just say, like, just do the 5,900 game. I mean, put those numbers in and see what the up target is. After all, these things usually do move pretty wild when they do go. This gives me an up target of 15,000, which kind of makes sense. Because a 3x play on a break of resistance, I even think is going to be, of that, a very, very conservative level 2. But before we do get there, we need to do things like have a neutral market, band flattening out. And I mean, this whole entire thing was neutral for the most part. But even though, a little bit declining, facet, yeah, but in here, this is neutral. Established resistance, okay, on this time frame, it did so on the December 18 stamp. Come back to the band, and it's been there for quite some time, but it's doing so productively. And if we come through here, final stage to put this in a longer term bull market, thus it would not surprise me at all that if in the near term, which is basically this winter, that if we're 1700, we probably won't be that area long. It wouldn't be a surprise if we're 3200 like a week, 2 weeks later, or an hour or 5 hours later from the way the sick volatility happens. When markets, when they're ready to go, they go wild within the crypto space. Let's continue on even further with Bitcoin Cash. This is an interesting setup, and I think it's worth mentioning. Obviously, it's in an uptrend. This previous data is not important for what I want to talk about here, as it is anyway. Price action, not the greatest of trend lines, but I can pretty much tell that resistance on this trend line has been support. It had an okay gain higher. But the question is, are we running out of momentum, and what's with all of that? Well, if we take a look at this on, actually I want to go hourly. The hourly chart, this is what I see. First off, we have support in this area here. Originally, I put the line around here, but it's almost box-ish now because this next level that came up supported in here. So I'd probably go like, it's a range of support, which is between that, and I'll just use the most lowest level that I can now, which would be right there. So this is like a range of support band. This rally attempt here manages to work within this previous resistance and has a clear breakout, but obviously that of a failed one. This little attempt on the 18 doesn't hold any of this area where it's supposed to, thus clearly breaking this support, resisting later. However, in doing so, the level it established happened to be where this line is, and the line is there because it was established and such, and it held it. But then we have this next excitation here, but not much of a move, for it only retraces about 38% in this level here. And after the fact, as it's correcting in here, it corrects for a distinct period of time on microscopic volatility, and then a microscopic breakdown, because the size of these moves compared to this and this is nothing, or lower rather. And now after a distinct time in here, it's been a distinct time in here, thus one floor lower, perfect for the most part, resisting this support, definitely establishing this. And to say that I know, okay, it's going to break lower, higher, not even close. But I realize if it breaks lower, its next support level is here. And if it's managing to get up above, it'd be just like it was in here, another attempt in what has been a nice bull market run to extend gains further. And let's finish it off within Dash, which from these lows at the end of 2019 near the 53 handle, going up about 3x to the 1500 point. Since then, 3 red days down to the 18 and small gains forward and low microscopic volatility. A rare situation I see here where it pierces above Fibonacci, which is worth note because, well, usually it's the opposite. But we're seeing obviously the rare one. But from this point, I like how it's been holding so far, but it still hasn't had any aggressive bets or aggressive moves. It's about a close to a 50% retracement from this low to this high, but on the way down, not quite 38.2. And when we take a look at this one on the single hour term time frame, a lot of the similarities that we're seeing within the Bitcoin Cash, how it got out above this after the curvature downward, there's band flattening, there's a nice little break of the established resistance. On the first situation, it held a nice correctionary move. This attempt to re-break the trend obviously failing, and it has not been holding too well since, but it has so far succeeded in holding this key line, this fib line that I put in a long time ago. Same thing. If this doesn't hold and I see weakness here, my next key level would be to this point in here, which is a retest of this, so on and so forth. Thank you for tuning in and have yourself a great day. Bye-bye.